I'll seek you out, flay you alive.
Hey guys, Pogo here, and welcome to the next episode of Swing 101. In this episode, I'm going to show you guys the basics of text input components. So far, we've looked at labels for displaying text, and then various different types of buttons. But in this episode, I'm going to show you guys how to actually take in text input. And there are a couple of different components that we can use. So we'll go ahead and get started. The first component that you'd probably use most often is called the J text field. And this is for a single line of text input. And you define it like J text field, we'll call it, is equal to new J text field. Now in the constructor, you can optionally specify the number of columns, which would represent how many characters it would have. It does scroll, so if you type in more characters than there is room, it will scroll and you can drag back and forth. But you can specify how big you want it to be. And then you can also give it default text. And I think that you have to, you have to swap the arguments. So it's the default text followed by the number of columns, or you don't need to specify anything if you don't want to. Some important things that you would want to use would be get text, which will return the text inside of the J text field. And then also any of these methods like set font, you can set the font, foreground and alignment X, all of those things would work as well. One interesting thing that you can do that you would want to do with a text field, you can apply this with any other component, but you probably want to do it more with a text input component, is you can actually do, you can add a key listener. So I did show you about adding an action listener, but you can also add a listener for keys. So for this, we can go ahead and use, instead of a key listener, we'll go ahead and use a key adapter, because key listener has a bunch of methods inside of it, but with a key adapter, if you take a look, all of these three methods, you can choose which methods you want, and the one that we would want to use is key pressed, and we could ignore the other ones. So this event is called when a key is pressed, and then it gives us a key event, just like the action event gave us an action, or the action listener gave us an action event, the key listener will give us a key event. If you take a look in here, the way that you would use this is, let's say that if they press the enter button, we want to print out the text. So you would say if e.getKeyCode is equal to key event.vk underscore, and then you would pick whatever character you would want. So in this case, you would do vk enter, but for any number, letter, or other key on the keyboard, you can find the specific key code for that. And then in this case, we would just print out text field.getText, and then we would obviously need to make that final. No, you don't have to. It's strange. Okay, so that is how you would do that. Now, one other convenience method, I mean, if you look in here, there are a bunch of methods. You can check if a certain key is down. So, like, if Alt is down, or if Control is down while you're doing something, then that would happen. Then you can, check. So if you're doing Command something or Control something. The meta, by the way, is the equivalent of the Command key on a Mac. And I assume it's the equivalent of the Windows key on a Windows computer, but I'm not sure. So if you ever want to use the Command key, it's called meta, or meta. Alright, so that is the text field. Let's go ahead and run this. And I forgot to add it. So we'll add the text field to the frame. Okay. So now if I go ahead and run it, you'll see, now you will see that it does stretch up where it normally wouldn't, and that's just because of the layout that we have right now. So when we get into layout managers, we'll obviously change that, but for now, As you can see, it just says default by default, but I can enter whatever I want, and if I enter more than there's room, then I can just scroll back and forth. So if I go ahead and enter something and press enter, you'll see that what I just typed in is printed out because I added the key listener. It was called when I pressed that key. The code of the key was the enter key, so therefore it printed out the text of the JText field. So that's the basics of the JText field with a key listener. One other thing that I'll show you quickly is that you can use a JText area or a JText pane if you want to allow for multiple lines. So if you wanted to allow for maybe a paragraph or more than one line, then you would use a JText area or a JText field. Or sorry, a JText area or a JText pane, either one. So for here we can just say JText area, and it does of course have all the methods. It has getText. It also has append if you want to append text to it. But then I'll just go ahead and quickly add this so you can see it. Frame.add text area. So if we go ahead and run it now that it has a text area, we can see them side by side. I have to turn on resizing. So let me just remove this so I can resize the window. And as you can see, okay, so yeah, right here is the text field, and then right here is the text area. And this obviously does have the ability to have multiple lines. Now it is acting quite strange right now where it's, pushing over as I write text, and yes, it's acting a little bit strange, but that's just because of the layout manager that we're using, so no need to worry about that. But if you wanted to allow for multiple lines, then that is how you would do it you would use a JText area. One last thing that I suppose is worth mentioning is if you want to have, if you're asking for a password or a piece of sensitive information on pretty much any website or program, you'll notice that the password gets replaced with these dots that look like that. And you can actually just use the JPassword field, which is the same as a JText field, except that it has password support. So again, I'll just go ahead and initialize one of these, and then I'll add a key listener because there's one important difference between a password field and a text field. So we'll do that, and then we'll add the password field. One important thing is when I do password field.getText, you'll notice that it's deprecated because they prefer that you use the getPassword method. Now you'll notice that getPassword returns a character array. So what you would want to do is just wrap this in a new string. String does have a constructor, so in this way you could say string password is equal to that, and then you could print out password. And if we go ahead and run it now, I can show you the difference. So if I type in password is what I just typed in there, it's all in dots, but when I press enter, you'll see that it says password. So that's how you would make a password field if you wanted to do that. So that's all for this episode. In these first couple episodes, I'm just introducing you to all of the different components and sort of the way that Swing works with, all the different methods and the listener, event dispatch system. Soon we're going to get into some of the actual designing GUIs with layouts and different things like that. But these first episodes have just been showing you the various components that you have at your disposal and some of the important things that you can do with them. So as always, subscribe if you want to see more, comment with what you want to learn, like the video, click the like button, and I'll see you guys soon with some more coding videos. Bye guys.